In the silent hours before dawn, when the stars still whisper ancient secrets to those who listen, a father climbs a mountain with his son. His sandaled feet find purchase on loose stones as his aged hands grip a knife that grows heavier with each step. This is no ordinary journey. This is the path where faith and despair walk hand in hand, where love and sacrifice become indistinguishable. This is the story of Abraham and Isaac, a tale that echoes through millennia, challenging all who hear it to question what they would sacrifice for their God. The sun had risen and set 10,000 times on Abraham's weathered face. His beard had turned from black to silver to white as he wandered the lands of Canaan, following the voice of a God who had promised him descendants as numerous as the stars. Yet his tent remained quiet, empty of the laughter of children. His wife Sarah's womb had remained barren through the seasons of her youth, and now, in the winter of their lives, they carried the weight of unfulfilled promise like a stone upon their hearts. Abraham would often walk alone beneath the vast canopy of stars, his aged eyes searching the heavens. "Lord," he would whisper, his voice carried away by the desert wind, "you promised me an heir. You promised my descendants would fill this land. Yet here I stand, an old man with no son to carry my name." The stars offered no reply, only the silent testimony of their countless multitudes. When visitors came to Abraham's tent, 3 mysterious travelers appearing in the heat of day, he did not know he was entertaining divine messengers. As they shared bread beneath the terebinth trees at Mamre, one spoke words that pierced Sarah's heart from where she listened behind the tent flap: "I will surely return to you about this time next year, and Sarah your wife shall have a son." Sarah laughed. The sound escaped her lips before she could contain it, a brittle, disbelieving laugh that held all the pain of decades of disappointment. How could her withered body, long past the age of childbearing, suddenly bloom with new life? Yet the messenger's words hung in the air with strange certainty: "Is anything too hard for the Lord?" And so it came to pass, after endless moons of waiting, that Sarah's belly swelled with impossible life. Abraham, now 100 years old, watched in wonder as his wife's body transformed, carrying the miracle they had ceased to believe possible. When the child's cries finally pierced the night air, they named him Isaac. He laughs, for the joy that had replaced their disbelief, for the divine humor that had made the impossible manifest. Isaac grew beneath the loving gaze of his parents. Abraham's weathered hands, once skilled only with staff and sword, now learned the gentle art of cradling an infant. Sarah, whose laughter had once been tinged with bitterness, now filled their dwelling with the melodious sounds of motherly delight. In Isaac's dark eyes, Abraham saw reflections of countless generations yet unborn, the fulfillment of God's covenant walking on 2 small, uncertain feet. The boy's first steps were celebrated with a feast that lasted 7 days. His first words became family lore, repeated to visitors who came to marvel at the child of Abraham's old age. Each milestone was a testament to divine faithfulness, each year of growth another confirmation that God's promises, however delayed, would not go unfulfilled. Abraham taught his son the ways of the flocks, showing him how to lead sheep to water, how to protect them from predators. More precious than these practical lessons were the stories Abraham shared beneath the vast desert sky, tales of creation, of the great flood, of the Tower of Babel. But most sacred were the accounts of Abraham's own encounters with the living God, the one who had called him from his father's house in Ur of the Chaldeans to journey to an unknown land. "The Lord spoke to me," Abraham would tell his wide-eyed son, "not as men speak, but in a voice that shook my very bones and yet comforted my soul. He promised me this land. He promised me descendants as numerous as the dust of the earth. And then, my son, he promised me you." Isaac would listen, wonder blooming in his young heart like desert flowers after rain. To be the fulfillment of divine promise, it was a mantle both glorious and heavy for small shoulders to bear. Yet he grew strong beneath it, nurtured by his father's faith and his mother's fierce love. As Isaac grew tall and strong, Abraham's heart swelled with pride and gratitude. Here was his legacy, his future, his answer to decades of prayer. In Isaac's laughter, Abraham heard echoes of eternity. In the boy's growing strength, he saw the foundation of a nation yet unborn. All of God's promises, the land, the blessing, the countless descendants, all of it now flowed through this one precious life. Then came the night that would forever divide Abraham's life into before and after. Abraham slept beneath the canopy of his tent, the desert night cool around him. Sarah's gentle breathing beside him and the distant bleating of sheep created a lullaby of contentment. Then, cutting through the fabric of dreams, came the voice he had learned to recognize above all others. Abraham. Just his name, spoken not with the lips but directly to his spirit. Abraham's eyes flew open to darkness, his heart already answering, "Here I am, Lord. Take your son, your only son Isaac, whom you love, and go to the land of Moriah. Offer him there as a burnt offering on one of the mountains of which I will tell you." The words hung in the darkness, terrible and clear. No divine messenger this time, no room for misunderstanding. Abraham lay motionless, the breath frozen in his lungs. Surely he had dreamed this horror. Surely the God who had given him this child against all hope would not now demand his blood. Yet Abraham knew the voice too well to doubt its source. This was indeed his God speaking, the same God who had led him safely through famine and war, who had blessed him with wealth and honor, who had opened Sarah's womb when all seemed lost. This was the voice that had become his compass, his certainty in an uncertain world. Morning came too soon. Abraham rose before the sun, moving like a man underwater, each gesture deliberate and slow. He chopped the wood for the offering himself, though servants stood ready to perform the task. The axe rose and fell, each strike echoing the pounding of his heart. Would soon be soaked with his son's blood? Would these hands that split the logs soon take up the knife against his own flesh? Sarah watched from the tent entrance, her brow furrowed with concern. A 3-day journey? She questioned when he spoke of taking Isaac to worship. The boy has never been so far from home. Abraham could not meet her eyes as he answered, "The Lord has commanded it." The partial truth burned his tongue, but how could he speak the full horror of what lay ahead? How could he explain what he himself could not comprehend? As he saddled the donkey and gathered supplies, Abraham's mind raced with questions and justifications. Perhaps this was merely a test of willingness, not action. Perhaps at the last moment, God would provide another sacrifice. Yet beneath these desperate hopes lay the terrible certainty, God had spoken, and Abraham had always obeyed. As they prepared to depart, Sarah embraced Isaac with unusual fierceness. "Return to me quickly," she whispered against his hair. Abraham turned away, his chest tight with unspoken grief. Would either of them return to her? And if Abraham came back alone, how would he bear the weight of her sorrow? For 3 days they traveled, Abraham, Isaac, and 2 young servants. Each step took them further from home and closer to the unimaginable. Abraham moved as if in a trance, responding to questions with brief words, his eyes fixed on the horizon. Behind his weathered face raged a storm of emotion, love for his son walking trustingly beside him, fear of what awaited them, and beneath it all, the bedrock of faith that had guided his 100 years of life. At night, when the servants and Isaac slept, Abraham would walk away from the campfire to fall on his face before God. No words would come, only silent tears that watered the desert soil. Yet even in this agony, no rebellion rose in his heart. The God who had given him Isaac had the right to reclaim his gift. The God who had promised descendants through this boy surely had power to fulfill that promise, even if Abraham could not fathom how. On the 3rd day, Abraham lifted his eyes and saw the mountain in the distance. It rose from the landscape like an altar, its slopes bathed in morning light. The sight sent a shudder through his aged frame. "Stay here with the donkey," he told the servants, his voice steadier than he felt. The boy and I will go over there to worship, and then we will come back to you. We will come back to you. The words were either faith or falsehood, Abraham himself did not know which. Yet something deeper than reason told him God's promise concerning Isaac could not end on this mountain. Abraham took the wood for the burnt offering and placed it on Isaac's shoulders. The boy accepted the burden without complaint, though the rough-hewn logs must have chafed his skin. Abraham carried the fire and the knife, fire to consume the sacrifice, knife to spill innocent blood. Father and son walked on together, two solitary figures ascending toward an appointment with mystery. The silence between them grew heavy until Isaac broke it with a question that pierced Abraham's heart like the knife at his belt. "Father, we have fire and wood, but where is the lamb for the burnt offering?" Abraham's step faltered. How could he answer? How could he look into those trusting eyes, Sarah's eyes, and speak of what lay ahead? He chose words that were neither lie nor full truth. "God himself will provide the lamb for the burnt offering, my son." Then they walked on together, the boy with wood on his back, the father with an impossible weight on his soul. They reached the place God had shown him. No sign marked it as special, no voice from heaven confirmed they had arrived. Yet Abraham knew with bone-deep certainty that this was where his faith would face its ultimate test. With trembling hands that belied his resolve, Abraham built an altar of uncut stones. Each rock he placed felt heavier than the last, as if he were constructing not just a place of sacrifice but his own tomb. For surely part of him would die here today, regardless of the outcome. Isaac helped, gathering stones from the mountainside, arranging the wood as he had seen done for countless offerings before. Did he notice his father's hands shaking? Did he sense the electric tension in the air? If so, he gave no sign, working with the diligence that had always made Abraham proud. When the altar stood complete, Abraham turned to his son. No words would come at first. How does a father explain such a thing? How does he tell the child he loves beyond reason that God requires his life? Abraham reached for Isaac, pulling him into an embrace that sought to compress a lifetime of love into one moment. "My son," he finally said, his voice thick with unshed tears, "God has asked for a sacrifice greater than any I have ever given." Understanding dawned slowly in Isaac's eyes, then bloomed into fear. "Father, no," he whispered, stepping back. But there was nowhere to run on the mountain's exposed summit. We cannot know if Isaac fought or submitted. The ancient text draws a veil over these moments too sacred for common view. Perhaps he struggled against the father he had always trusted. Perhaps, raised in the shadow of Abraham's faith, he accepted this incomprehensible fate. What we do know is that Abraham bound his son with ropes meant for the sacrificial animal and laid him on the altar atop the wood. Isaac lay there, bound and trembling, looking up at the father who had taught him to trust God in all things. The sky stretched endlessly blue above them, silent witness to this terrible obedience. Abraham stood over his son, tears streaming freely now down his lined face. His hand reached for the knife at his belt, drew it forth. The metal caught the sunlight, flashing like divine fire. Abraham raised the knife. His arms seemed weighted with the sorrow of all fathers who would ever lose a son. In this suspended moment, heaven and earth held their breath. Everything that Abraham was, everything he believed about his God, hung poised on the knife's edge above his beloved son's heart. His arm tensed for the downward stroke. "Abraham! Abraham!" The voice came like thunder, stopping his hand in midair. The knife trembled in his frozen grip. "Here I am," Abraham gasped, hardly daring to believe. "Do not lay your hand on the boy or do anything to him, for now I know that you fear God, seeing you have not withheld your son, your only son, from me." The knife fell from Abraham's nerveless fingers, clattering against the stones of the altar. With shaking hands, he untied the ropes that bound his son, helping Isaac to his feet, holding him as both their bodies shook with silent sobs. A rustling sound drew Abraham's attention. There in a thicket was a ram, its horns caught in the branches. Abraham stared at it in wonder. The animal had not been there moments before, or had he been too blinded by grief to see it? With Isaac standing safely aside, Abraham took the ram and offered it on the altar in place of his son. As the smoke of the sacrifice rose toward heaven, Abraham gave this place a new name: the Lord will provide. For on this mountain, when all seemed lost, when faith was stripped to its barest essence, God had indeed provided. The journey home was different from the ascent. Abraham walked with his arm around Isaac's shoulders, as if afraid the boy might vanish if he let go. They spoke little, both changed by what had transpired on the mountaintop. Some experiences lie beyond the realm of words, living instead in the sacred spaces between heartbeats. What did Isaac think of his father now? What did he think of the God who had demanded his life, then spared it? The ancient text does not tell us. Perhaps in that mystery lies the power of the story, that we must each wrestle with its implications, just as Abraham and Isaac surely did for the remainder of their days. As they approached home, Sarah ran to meet them, her face alight with joy at their return. Did she see the shadow in her husband's eyes? Did she sense the transformation in her son? If so, we are not told. Some burdens are carried alone, even between those who share one tent and one life. That night, Abraham again walked beneath the stars, his eyes searching the heavens as they had so many times before. The same stars that had symbolized God's promise of countless descendants now seemed to hold new meaning, each one a testament to divine faithfulness in the face of human impossibility. Lord, Abraham whispered, not in question this time but in wonder, you have shown me that your ways are beyond understanding, that your promises stand even when all paths to their fulfillment seem closed. You have taught me that you do not demand sacrifice for its own sake, but to know the depths of our hearts. And so the ancient story ends, yet never truly ends. For in this tale of a father, a son, a knife, and a ram caught in a thicket, we glimpse the terrible beauty of faith pushed to its outer limits. We see that sometimes God asks us to climb mountains not to take something from us, but to show us what we, and He, are truly made of. We learn that the greatest tests often come not in what we are asked to surrender, but in discovering what we receive when our hands are finally empty. If this ancient story of sacrifice and provision has moved you today, remember that these sacred narratives continue to guide and challenge us thousands of years later. Have you ever faced your own Mount Moriah moment? A time when everything you believed was tested to its core. Share your thoughts in the comments below. How does Abraham's test of faith speak to your own spiritual journey? What mountains are you climbing right now? Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more powerful retellings of timeless spiritual stories that have shaped humanity's understanding of faith, sacrifice, and divine love. Hit that notification bell so you'll know immediately when our next narrative drops. And if this story touched something deep within you, please like and share it with others who might need this reminder that even in our darkest moments on the mountaintop, provision may be just a heartbeat away. Until next time, may you find the courage to climb your own mountains, knowing that you never ascend alone.